Something I have been seeing a lot of over the past few months is this unit diversity term thrown around. So, usually it's used to describe games like Warhammer and contrasted with games like Shogun 2. And it seems to be an attack on games like Shogun 2, but mostly used to prop up and support games like Warhammer, where what they are going for is quantity, a type of quantity that may or may not be valuable. And I don't think it's valuable, because I don't think there's much meaningful gameplay that can really be conceived in a game like that, because this game has strongly defined units that all operate quite distinctly, and that allows for much more creative and emergent gameplay to be conceived. The possibilities are much greater, far greater, I think, in this game than, say, Troy, or 3K, or Warhammer, just any of these modern Total War games. I don't see any real, meaningful, creative, stimulating gameplay occurring. I bought Rome 2, I played it, there was nothing that I could really do with it. I bought Three Kingdoms, I played it, I learned it all, the game ran well, and I was unimpressed with the possibilities that the game offers. And I think that by saying this unit diversity thing, my gaze is being drawn to the next point of attack, which is an intuitive next thing to focus on and analyse, so that's what I'm going to do. People say unit diversity, and it's a fallacy, I think. People say diversity, and it's a narrative that is built on falsehoods that can easily be analysed, I think. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start with Shogun 2, and I'm going to examine the roster and how it works, and then I'm also going to do this for Rome Total War, and then I'm going to do it maybe for Medieval 2, and then I'm going to totally change and start analysing Three Kingdoms, which I know quite well, at least until all the DLC spamming started and I lost interest, along with most people that bought the game and played it, and developed some familiarity with it. And then, yeah, I'll leave it there and maybe formalise it into a video that's thorough and has some conclusions, and the video can hopefully then be pointed to, and this unit diversity thing will have some light shone on it. So I think that it's bullshit, and I know that intuitively from how I play these games and the gameplay that I produce, but I've never really formally analysed it and made videos on it, so here I go. Alright, so Shogun 2 works by way of a core roster that was developed being duplicated across all of the factions. So Yusuke, Tokugawa, Takeda, Shimizu, Otomo, Oda, Mori, Ikuiki, Hattori, Hojo, Date, Chosakabe. So these are all pretty much just copy-pasted, and then slight tweaks and occasional units introduced to give it some variety. And I think it's done quite well, because all of these units are quite well defined well enough that minor tweaks and changes can make the already interesting gameplay that existed between the units and was symmetrical even more interesting now between factions, which are slightly asymmetricized. Alright, I'm going to start at the bottom and be quite thorough, and I'm going to just analyse the whole Shimizu roster and then go from there. So, right at the bottom of the entire unit hierarchy of Shogun 2 is the Yariya Shigaru. It is a very weak spear unit, but it has two things in its favour that dominate, that are just omnipresent in every fight, that raise the stakes and the tension and make every battle in the game interesting. First of all, even though it's the weakest unit, it is a threat to the most valuable unit, the General's Bodyguard, and of course the cavalry that rule battlefields. So the weakest unit in the game is a spear unit, and it also has a Yariwal that means it can be used tactically. If you put Yari walls on hills, in trees, you always have a chance against a stronger army. If there's nothing on the field but Yari Ashigaru, the fight is still alive. You still can make something of it. So that's the Yari Ashigaru, the unit that every other unit is based on pretty much. This is the fundamental unit in Shogun 2. I don't know how many fucking thousands of Yari Ashigaru I've wiped over the years in Shogun 2, but it is a lot. And Yari Ashigaru has low morale, crap melee stats, no charge to speak of whatsoever, and crap armor. So it has strong strengths and weak weaknesses. It is... an army of Yari Ashigaru can just chain route and leave the field because of one aggressive flank from a Yari Samurai. So this is the Samurai equivalent of the Yari Ashigaru. If you upgrade them, you get this. That's how it should be, but of course Yari Samurai doesn't have Yari Wall. Yari Samurai are arguably underpowered, but when you play multiplayer, the lack of morale that Yari Ashigaru have, and the low armor and the low charge, these things really show. The game is balanced so that multiplayer is where the distinction is apparent. If you're playing Shogun 2 thinking that you can just spam Yari Ashigaru and win, you're not wrong, you can. But Shogun 2 is a tactical game where you can spam anything and win. You can spam Naginata Samurai and win Shogun 2's legendary difficulty. All you have to do is be very aware and reactive and competent. So Yari Samurai are a more resilient, more disciplined Yari Ashigaru that relies less on very precise tactical situations to do well. Yari Samurai can be charged around flanks and have their high morale keep them in the fight, even if they're surrounded and being fired at by fire arrows or have just been clipped by a cavalry unit. The way that you use Yari Ashigaru and Yari Samurai is totally different if you can be aware of their differences. The way they function in-game is totally disparate. They're completely different units. And this is where the fallacy of unit diversity really shows. It's just immediate. All you have to do is go from Yari Ashigaru to Yari Samurai, and you can immediately see that slight changes, apparently slight changes, have massive ramifications on legendary difficulty in the single player or in multiplayer. But I'm going to focus on single player for this video, and all of these videos. And then you have Naginata Samurai. So this is the first Naginata unit you'll get. Naginata are like an intermediate between katanas and yaris, and in addition to being an intermediate, they also have higher armor. So Naginata Samurai are possibly slower, higher armor, lower charge, so they're a less decisive unit, but they have the same 10 morale that all of these samurai units have, apart from the bow samurai. So all of these melee samurai have 10 morale, so they're all able to withstand the same stress on the battlefield. They can be pushed to the same extent. But the difference between Yari Samurai and Naginata Samurai is, first of all, the main thing is the armor. So they'll withstand arrows much better than Yari Samurai. And they do have a bonus versus cavalry. It's not as high as the Yari Samurai, but it's enough that they will do well against all cavalry units at all times. They will always do well facing a cavalry unit. And they've got 9 plus 6 for 15 melee stats compared to 8 plus 6 for 14, or 14 plus 5 for 19, or 14 plus 1. No, wait. That's 12 plus 4 for 16 for standard Katana Samurai, and 14 plus 1 for 15 for Nodashi. So, Katana Samurai have the highest addition of attack and defense, but of course they all have the same 10 morale. So, Naginata Samurai are a much less decisive unit, and Shogun 2 is a decisive game. So if you just bring Naginata Samurai, which is a very strong jack of all trades, it's not really a zero sum. The more well-rounded you make a unit, the less of an edge it has in the situations it will usually find itself in. So you're actually incentivized with Naginata Samurai to put them in bad situations and use them to support other units while they're being decisive. So Nodashi Samurai flanking while Naginata Samurai stand and take charges of cavalry, volleys of arrows, or even just tie down Katana Samurai on the front, which they can do quite well. So you would not be able to do that with Yari Samurai, and Yari Ashigaru, they can do relatively well standing toe to toe, especially in Yariwal, but they cannot take arrows as well as Naginata Samurai. Naginata Samurai, if you look at my video, which one was it? Oh yeah, Zulu Tactics, that one. Naginata Samurai are standing with upgraded armour, tanking arrows for so long, and that's something that only they can really do. Even if you have 5 plus 5 for 10 armour on Yari Samurai, it doesn't compare to Naginata Samurai in that role. And then you've got monks. So 2 Yari units, and then you're already up to the Naginatas, and it goes Naginata Samurai and then Naginata monks. And there isn't any Yari monks. So already you see a loose tiering system where they're classed. It doesn't go Yari Ashigaru, Yari Samurai, Yari monks. It does go Yari, Naginata, Katana. There's a progression there, and there's likewise an ascending progression of tier in the sense of Ashigaru, Samurai, monks, but it's not complete. So Naginata monks have almost no armour. They're the same as Ashigaru. So that's the way monks are defined by the game. They are zealous. They have exaggerated stats for whatever discipline. So very high melee attack and defense. So Naginata monks have a higher melee attack than Katana Samurai. So they wield the Naginata with the same kind of flurry that Katana Samurai have. Well, it would be even greater because they only have base of 12 usually. So all of these units are very distinct. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they have low armour, of course, and they have less bonus versus cavalry than Naginata Samurai. But Naginata monks are meant to stand in the melee that they rush to get into as quickly as possible, and then Warcry. So the way you would use Naginata warrior monks is to get them into the fight quickly without relying quite as much on the charge, because Nodashi Samurai have a charge bonus of 28, so these are the charging unit, and then Naginata monks only have a charge bonus of 12. So the charge is mediocre, but what they do have is a very high morale, melee attack and defense. The way Naginata Samurai are designed to be resilient and to stand and do well in a really desperate, scrappy situation, that's what monks do well as long as there's no incoming arrows involved. So if this unit's hidden, it's especially likely to do well if it can go from being hidden into the melee as quickly as possible. And then if it's on the flanks, even better because it has a war cry. So that's how you would use Naginata monks differently from Naginata samurai. No arrows, so get into the melee as quickly as possible. So it's completely different from Naginata samurai. Naginata samurai you can be reckless with. If they are being fired at by bows, they are being used relatively well. They are participating in the fight in a way that is meaningful. Whereas Naginata warrior monks, they cannot afford to weather any arrows. They have to get into the melee. They have to be in that scrappy, close fight. Hopefully with something like this. But ideally with Yari units like Yari Samurai or Yari Ashigaru, and cavalry charging them are going to have to deal with this. And also any hidden Naginata property modifier against cavalry that they have, which I think does exist. So already these 4 units are all completely disparate, and if you compare them across the way, like compare Yari Ashigaru to Naginata warrior monks, they are about as good against cavalry, but these can be more aggressive in chasing down cavalry because they have way higher morale. So they've got similar kinds of attack against cavalry because they've got 4 in the 20 and they've got 14 in the 10, but they've got way higher morale, and the charge bonus is likewise kinda negligible. It doesn't matter as much. So you can see there's massive differences between all of these units. They've all been distinguished. It's only when you get to something like this, warrior nuns, that things start to become less well defined. So most people just never use warrior nuns. They have very high stats, even higher than Naginata warrior monks, but they have way less men or women, so they're usually always inferior. And I would say warrior nuns are underpowered. They're not used, and you can only make 1 of them, but there's no reason to there's no reason to force only 1, because people never use them. And then you get to the Yari hero, and this is a strange unit. It's got second wind. Come on. Second wind, rapid advance, hold firm. They've got all of these abilities, and they've got the Yari square, which I think Yari Samurai should have. And of course, as these units increase in quality, they become more susceptible to matchlocks, vulnerable to matchlocks and to being swamped by massed melee units. So the morale is way up. You're at the hero units now, and these 2 units here are pay to win. These come from DLC, and they are not well distinguished, so I don't like that. I don't like that these units exist in the game. You pay money to get them, and they serve little purpose, so they can mostly be ignored. They're basically just another Naginata. It's a Naginata samurai hero. 2 of them, with slight differences. Hold firm. Hold firm. Look at that. Basically redundant. Excellent armor, and it doesn't say excellent armor here, so it's not even... makes no sense. Yeah, so forget about these 2. Naginata samurai heroes, 2 of them, and the only difference is the model. So this is where the Warhammerization has begun. These 2 units are basically identical, but they have a different model. This one's male and this one's female. So even though they charged money for these units, they didn't even define them within the game. So all of the effort to define and disambiguate the units was made in the base game, and when you pay money, all you get is filler, so no one cares about these units. And then there's the Naginata Warrior Monk hero that you see in the intro of the game. And extreme morale, the highest morale in the game, I think. Is it? Possibly the highest? Possibly the highest, let's see. Yeah, the highest. So, they are the pinnacle of disciplined, trained, religious fanatic. They have relatively low armor. They have exceptionally good attack plus defense. Let me see a minute. The defense, though, is what stands out. 28 plus 12. 20 plus 15. Yeah, so they have very high melee defense. Yaruhiro has the same melee defense, so that's a little bit of a discrepancy. Usually Yari has the highest melee defense, but Yaruhiro has the same melee defense as the Naginata Warrior Monk hero. So you would almost always, well, they're really cheap, they're only 1,000. It's interesting, because a Yari Samurai is 700 and they're 1,000, so they almost cost the same. Yeah, so Naginata Warrior Monk hero. This is a true unit, I would say. Like, it's included in the game in a meaningful way, because they have very high attack and defense, and low armor, and extreme morale, and they have Warcry and Hold Firm. And of course, the aesthetics are unique. Like, the first one to get this aesthetic of Naginata hero has it, I think. So fuck these units. Benkei's blades. Yeah. Fuck these two units. Warhammerization. This is where it started, maybe. Or maybe it was an Empire that they started that shit. Anyway, that's the Spear Infantry. So you've got, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 distinct spear units that are all different. They are definitely all different. Alright, swords. Nodashi Samurai. Extreme charge at the cost of everything else, but they retain decent melee attack and decent morale. So you want this unit to be charging more than once, otherwise it's not being used properly. So charge on the flanks at weak units that will break to the charge, like Yareshigaru. That's what you do with them. And if they have cavalry support, they'll do really well, because you counter cavalry with the units that these are really good against. So cavalry and Nodashi moving fast, with Banzai giving them extra speed. Very strong, difficult to defend against. But of course, they have really shitty armor, really bad. So this is the front line unit that initiates combat, the Nodashi Samurai. It's underutilized in the campaign because it comes after Katana Samurai, but you stretch this unit out and you charge at weak units that it can survive the charge against, and then charge again with Banzai, recharged hopefully, and that's how you use this unit. And also the armor is really bad, it melts to arrows. Same armor as Yareshigaru, but even less men. That makes this unit into a glass cannon. You really need to keep this unit. It's kind of like Naginata Warrior Monks, except the Nodashi Samurai relies on the charge that the Naginata Warrior Monks don't have. So even though they're used similarly in the sense that you want to get them into the fight as quickly as possible with minimal exposure to arrows, these rely way more on the charge than the monks. who rely on a protracted melee to do well, because that's where their high attack and defense together comes through. But Nodashi Samurai have no defense, just like they have no armor. So they're crutched by their charge bonus, which is then followed up somewhat by melee attack, which can usually finish the fight for them. They will win in a straight, fair, controlled charge with Banzai against Katana Samurai because their charge is so good. And also, hang on, I keep... Alright, now there we go. So, that's the stats of Katana Samurai, 12 and 4, and Nodashi Samurai with 14 and 1 win against them because of their charge. Attack is better than defense, and even though Katana Samurai have 12 plus 4 and with more armor, Nodashi Samurai beat them in a straight fight because that initial charge is so important, and then the melee attack keeps them in the fight long enough to win. Barely win. And then, oh man, pay to win units. These are 2 pay to win units. Saigen Swordmasters. That is a poorly implemented Nodashi Samurai. Look at the charge, 45. Charge bonus doesn't even have returns after about 35 or 40, so that's redundant. That charge bonus is starting to get redundant now. It caps out at 50, but by the time it gets to 35 or 40, you're already doing as well as you can. It provides no returns. But they have the high morale consistent with hero units, and they have very high attack, but not as high as Tetsubo warriors, which are Nodashi Samurai that have been repurposed to have Tetsubos instead of Nodashis. So they have the same animations, and this is what I'm saying, like, see, once you look at these DLC units, you see the problems coming through. They don't even have their own animations for the Tetsubos. It's half-assed. It's fucking half-assed. It's not well thought out, and it's not well implemented. So they are... So it seems like what they're doing with Tetsubos is giving them a really high attack and armor at the cost of charge. Because look, alright, warrior monk heroes, so Naginatas are meant to have the weakest charge. If you look at Yara Samurai, charge bonus to 15, then you look at Naginata Samurai, goes down to 12, and then even Katana Samurai have 15 as well, but if you rapid advance, it goes up to 16. So the highest charge bonus Samurai is Yari Samurai, even higher than, well, unless you talk about the Nodashi, of course, goddamn. But unless you have a specifically purposed charging unit like Nodashis, the Yara Samurai do better than Naginatas and even Katanas. So it seems like sticking out a Yari and charging with it is what you're meant to do for charge bonus. And yet Tetsubos don't have a good charge. 12. That's not much higher than... Wait a minute. 20. That's not much higher than Katana Samurai at 15. So, Tetsubo heroes... And also, this is weird. It has this here. Bonus when fighting against cavalry. So this is another artifact, another strange glitch. It doesn't need to say bonus versus cavalry here. It's like they left the string and forgot to remove... They took the value out without removing the string or something. It's just hasty and rushed. So this is a pay to win unit that hasn't been done properly, just like this one, because you need to stretch this unit out to make the most of the charge. Alright, next one, Katana Hero. This is meant to be the quintessential... This is the successor to the Kensai, and this having 40 men in the unit, it's disappointing. It's not as good as it was in Shogun 1, but what you're dealing with here is really high charge. That is the same as Nodashi there on the Katana Hero, and they can also Banzai, and they have hold firm. and they have high armor as well. So these guys come with the game, base Shogun 2, as beasts. They have Naginata Samurai armor of 9. They have Nodashi charge bonus of 28. And they have unmatched melee attack. So in a melee, they are meant to be able to just shred, and they also have decent defense. That's higher by 2 than Yari Samurai. They have a higher melee defense than Yari Samurai, and they have katanas. That's how quick they are. And 25 plus 10 for 35, and the armor, of course, and they have a high charge. So these are meant to just be used to hold a choke with their unmatched, unparalleled stats until they added these fuckers, which rely less on the charge. These will beat katana heroes. I think it might be Hanzo's Shadows might beat Tetsubo Warriors, but it's between Tetsubo Warriors and Hanzo's Shadows for the strongest unit in the game one-on-one, I think. Unless you're talking about some Oda Long Yari bullshit going on. Alright, next up is the bows, and I don't care much for bows in Shogun 2 because I play fast and I play for really high margins. I go for KDs that bows can rarely keep up with. So all a bow can do really is fire all its ammo and get its kill tally that's already defined, and after that they're out the fight. So that's not good enough for me. I use bows to support my actual battle plan, because usually my battle plan is ambitious and bow units in this game are just not. So Bow Ashigaru are the weakest, low armor, low everything. They have the same range as Bow Samurai, but they have low everything. They have a high volume of arrows though, because they've got 20 ammo for 160 men for 3,200 arrows. And then you've got Bow Samurai. So everything goes up. Everything goes up apart from number of men and cost. Cost goes up, I mean. Cost is also worse. So number of men is worse, cost is worse. So it's high quality, and the armor is a big difference. The armor is important. Bow Samurai beats Bow Ashigaru in a straight fight, I'm quite sure, and a big part of that is just the armor. So they can usually follow up volleys, and that first volley, a first and second and third, it's like as the number of men goes down, the killing ability of the unit goes down. So Bow Samurai being able to reload faster while preserving their own men with their higher armor. The longer the fight goes on, the more pronounced the difference in quality becomes between bow units, because of course the whole unit is always engaged in the fight usually, whereas in a melee it's just wherever there's contact. So the dynamics of size of the units makes things a bit different with bows. And then you've got fuck. I'm not going to talk about special units. And then monks, and you have... So, bow monks are interesting. They've got worse melee stats. Even though they're monks and they're meant to be more obsessive and relentless in their pursuit of their craft of being warrior monks, they have worse melee stats than samurai. 5-2, 4-1. But they have a higher charge bonus, which is interesting. Worse armor. But this is the thing that distinguishes bow monks, really. Distinguishes them a lot, because range is a square law for area that the unit covers with its zone of influence, like how far it can range out to and affect the fight. 175 is much greater than 150, and they've got higher ammo and higher stats again. And also I think the projectile might be a different one as well, because there's definitely something going on with damage. As you go up here, the projectiles themselves seem to do more damage. 20, 25, 30, 40 ammo. Alright, so higher range again, 150 up to 200 now. Higher reload, accuracy, ammo, higher armor, even higher armor than bow samurai. 7 armor is... There's not many units that have 7 armor in this game. Katana samurai have 5. Yeah, that's rare. Yari hero have 8. 7 armor, and they have mediocre melee stats. So, in a melee, you can pretty much write them off. I think they have 2 hit points, which makes them a bit more resilient, but in a melee, they will get shredded against anything except for Yari Ashigaru that are being flanked. So, if you could flank with this unit and charge Yari Ashigaru, it could pay for itself, but 1,250 for 350, yeah, it would have to be a decisive charge. So fuck that unit in a melee. It's about getting these 40 volleys off, which you can do quite fast with a 70 reload and 200 range. And also flaming arrows, whistling arrows, and that's something monks have as well. Whistling arrows. And Bow Ashigaru and Bow Samurai rely heavily on their fire arrows. They get 1 volley usually of fire arrows that does more damage. Alright, matchlocks now. So matchlocks in this game are a counter to higher quality units with less men in them. So these are to take out heroes, especially the ones that do well in melee. So ideally you would distract this unit or tie it down or have it engaged and then fire into it with matchlocks. And that is the essence of combined arms, tactics and military doctrine. You have a unit like katanas here, take it on from one side, so it has to face that unit, otherwise it gets stabbed in the back. These katanas come down on it while it is looking elsewhere, so while they are engaged in duels with these katanas, you have these matchlocks fire into their backs. So if they pull out of the melee to charge the matchlocks, they get chopped up from behind with the katanas. If they stand their ground and fight the katanas, they get shot in the back and there's nothing they can do. You have combined arms, and any action they take to deal with either one leaves it open to the other one. And that shows that Shogun 2 is designed properly. Like that's just simply a consequence of the natural order that just emerges from cause and effect. It just occurs. It's expected to occur. Just like dropping a rock. So the fact that you can use these units in these ways shows that this is a sandbox that is effectively simulating these emergent military principles that are ubiquitous throughout military literature and writing for fucking thousands of years. So matchlocks are an important part of the game, and they are a counter to these zealous infantry and also cavalry, because they are small numbers of men. Even katana cavalry has 80 men, and that's how you have the battle at Nagashino, where matchlocks just gun down cavalry charging stockades, because it's a lot easier to mobilise a high quality of matchlocks than it is to mobilise a high quantity of cavalry. So matchlocks are for gunning down high quality. You don't use matchlocks against these unless you're doing it for the morale. You only really want to use matchlocks against the most formidable, expensive, skilled, valuable units including generals. If you can shoot the general, battle's over. So Matchlock Ashigaru are just like Yari Ashigaru here. They are the base unit. And Matchlocks are powerful in Shogun 2, so while I glossed over Bow Ashigaru, I give attention to Matchlocks because Matchlocks are a battle winning unit. They have 15 ammo, 160 men, that's 2,400 rounds that can potentially get kills at a decent rate, so like what is it, 30%? So 30% to 24, so 720 kills. If it works like that, then this unit can get 800 kills, as expected to, according to probability, if it fires all of its shots and has line of sight, and this is a percentage thing. So Matchlocks are just like Yari Ashigaru. If you have some of them, you can do something. You always have an option. Make a situation where they have line of sight and time, and they can fire away, sputter away, winning the battle for you. Time and exposure. And then, let's see, fire by rank, kind of broken. I wish they would fucking fix that. Alright, so Matchlock Samurai. Reload goes up, accuracy goes up, ammo doesn't go up, all the melee stats go up. So this is just more for those situations on the battlefield where the Matchlocks have to not only be firing but be well drilled and potent. So you stretch these out, and preferably on a wall, and allow them to shoot for as long as possible, and this high accuracy will make the most of this ammo. And it's a different unit, and it has, to distinguish it, it's got a rapid volley, which means that it has a, it's like Banzai for no dashi, so its potency is temporarily increased. So at the start of the fight, or at that crucial point, use rapid volley, and it gives them higher DPS. And then you have hero unit, fucking hero unit, DLC pay to win unit, pay to win, and what do they have? Higher range. Yeah, so not well distinguished again. Higher accuracy, higher range, so they shoot more accurately out to a greater range, but they have so few men that the total shots on target are reduced. But they do have decent melee stats, so 16 and 5 compared to 8 and 6 for the bows, see that? So they're way more viable in a melee, and they actually do well against hero units. So 40 men firing at 40 men here, they will do well. It won't take long before that unit disappears. So I don't know what I think about this unit. I don't think it's particularly well distinguished from these two. And heavy gunners, forget about them. And you have cavalry. And the cavalry basically derives off of what you've got so far. You've got light cavalry, which is a weak Yari cavalry, with less men, worse stats, but it has higher speed. So it can be used to control the battlefield well. It outmaneuvers, and any situation where you need cavalry assistance, like a rear charge to break, light cavalry will do that well, maybe even better than katana cavalry. If you need to get around and into the unit to break it with a rear charge, light cavalry will do better, I think, than katana cavalry a lot of the time, even though light cavalry are pushovers in the melee, because they have almost no armour, no melee defence, crappy attack, but they have a higher charge bonus than the katana cavalry, and they're faster. And of course, they have a bonus versus cavalry, which means they can snipe bodyguards, snipe the general. And then you have bow cavalry. So an interesting unit that it's a bit inflexible. So I think it has to be though, because bow cavalry can be real annoying when they're skirmishing. So bow cavalry need to be difficult to use, finicky, easy to catch, require a lot of attention and micromanagement, and they can be caught, I think, by light cavalry, and they can't fire Parthian shot. They can't do that. And then you have katana cavalry, which are mounted katanas. They are not good enough in the melee, so they're slower, so they're worse at what cavalry should always be good at, mobility, and they don't really make up for it with their melee stats. They will still die in a melee. There's 80 of them, and they have they can only really do well in a fight against a few units, and a lot of the units they do well against in a melee are bows, and a lot of bow units can easily be melted by light cavalry, or bow cavalry even bow cavalry, because they have 10 charge. So katana cavalry are difficult to use well. They have high armor though, I remember that. And then you've got Yari cavalry. So Yari cavalry have similar stats to light cavalry, 4-1, 5-1. But what they have is a much higher bonus versus cavalry and a higher charge bonus. And they also have a bigger unit. So they have 80 instead of 60. And they have 20 plus 15 for 40 on the charge, kinda. If you combine these three stats, 5, 25, 15, you get 45. The moment they meet in a melee, they're hitting them with 45. And then with this unit, it is 24 plus 7, 31, so they can really shred light cavalry on a direct head-on charge. But the light cavalry will do damage in return. It's really this bonus versus cavalry that just is massive in the melee. And then you have bow hero, cavalry, katana cavalry hero, spear cavalry hero. These are just fucking DLC units. But you have Great Guard, which is even higher charge. Some melee defense finally, because these only have 1. So katana cavalry have 6 melee defense, and Great Guard have 5. It's almost like katanas are the most defensively versatile weapon on horseback, because look at that, they have, it's a Yari cavalry, like a superior Yari cavalry, but it only has a melee defense of 5 compared to 6 for katana cavalry. Strange. But they have really high stats here, so 15, 35, 15, so that's 65 involved on the moment of the charge. So extremely formidable. Great Guards, if you can charge them into an engaged light cavalry, they will kill it without taking any damage really. That charge is so good, and all these support and melee stats are so good. So you need to protect your Great Guard from charges and allow them repeated charges and conserve them over the course of the fight. Kinda like Nodashi, whereas Katana Cavalry don't rely as much on the charge. They do well in a melee, like Katana Samurai. And then the hero units, oh man. 200 bow, 200 range for the bow hero cavalry, just like the bow hero on foot. And once again, bonus versus cavalry is empty, fucking bizarre. See that? See how this is empty? They forgot to take it out. They were just rushed. They rushed. They didn't even implement it properly. They weren't careful and attentive. Because it's a DLC thing, and DLCs are always just money grabs, cash grabs. They rushed including this unit. And then Katana Cavalry Hero, 30 plus 10 is 40. Look at these stats, 30 melee attack, 10 melee defense, 30 charge bonus. So that's 30 plus 30 for 60 on the charge, basically. So in the moments after the charge, they are so formidable, and they have decent armor too. But this is a really boring unit. It has second wind, and it has the useless wedge, but it's just not. It's not really good enough. It's not good enough to have these token units. Just have a hero of a katana on a horse. It's just shit. So, ironically, base Shogun 2 is really well distinguished, and it's only once you start having all these DLC units thrown in for cash grabs that the quality of the implementation, the thoughtfulness just goes off a cliff, and the units are just not distinguished. They're not disambiguated. And then, Shizugatake. I use this unit a lot, but look, bonus versus cavalry of 15. It's the same as the Yari cavalry, 15 bonus versus cavalry. So it's not even done properly. It should have a way higher bonus versus cavalry. Yari Samurai has 25. Where the hell is it? But they do have 40 charge, which is really high. Maybe the highest base charge. Wait, no, 45 for these Nodashi heroes. But above 40, you really see no returns. So the expected mediocre melee defense of Yari on horseback, and it's really strange. So you can see it really clearly with Yari cavalry. They decided that Yaris on horseback have no melee defense capability whatsoever, and then when they have a hero version of a Yari cavalry, which is obviously what this is, it continues to have terrible melee defense. The same as the Nodashi hero. It's strange. It turns cavalry into charge only units, because even katana cavalry with relatively low charge and good melee stats don't last long enough in a melee. Like, there's hidden stats involved here, I think, that affect unit classes, and a katana cavalry do not do well enough in a melee. The charge bonus is not high enough. The melee attack is not high enough in a sustained melee. They don't last long enough. And when you have Yari on horseback, like Yari cavalry, these units just melt. Oh man, in a sustained fight, they just melt. But it means that there's high risk and high reward. If you get the charge off, which it's imperative that you do, and the charge is well timed, it can be really decisive, especially against these crap units with low morale like Yari Ashigaru. A lot of the satisfaction of Shogun 2 comes from the tactility, the reward for decisiveness. It's a decisive game that rewards decisive moves, and yeah, when you have Yari cavalry with high charge and almost no melee defense, and a hero unit that follows that trend, you really feel it. See, when these guys are trailing at the back of a cavalry fight and just come in after light cavalry has eaten the charge, or eaten all of the charges, they can get off their charge bonus and then have a really gritty fight and still be alive to tell the tale, with an ability to use second wind again later. So I would say this unit is quite well distinguished, but katana cavalry heroes are just like katana cavalry, crappy, and the bow cavalry hero is just a cash grab pay to win unit that's not even good. But all of these other units are well distinguished. Great Guard, Yari cavalry, these can be used differently. Great Guard you can throw into a melee with katana samurai and do well. 80 men with 35 charge can shred a katana samurai, and then the melee attack and defense can carry it through, and it can kill a katana samurai with like 50 or 60 men left. So, and that's something a Yari cavalry can't do. So the way you use these units is different. If you're going to use them well, you have to be attuned to what they're capable of. You have to really be aware of the differences, which are minute, and I am aware, and I can use them differently. And it's satisfying to see Great Guard getting away with more than Yari Cavalry would have. So these are all different. And then you have the siege units. So you've got firebomb throwers, which are obsolete. Kisho Ninja do everything they do better. You never bring these, really. I don't know why you would. It's not thought out well. Really, it's not thought out well. Yep, they dropped the ball. They weren't thinking about it properly, they didn't do it properly. They even have better accuracy. They have more ammo, better accuracy, more men. There's no reason for firebomb throwers. They're cheaper, easier to recruit with infrastructure that you get. But at what cost? Kind of a redundant unit. And then fire projecting mangonels. Again, just underpowered, can't really use them properly. Such a pain in the ass to use them properly, man, like to utilise them. European cannons, oh man. They can general snipe kinda, but they don't have enough utility to really be worth the cost. 1,200 and they slow the whole army down that they're with. It's hard to use them. Hands of Shadows, oh man, another pay to win unit. Like, it's cool, this mask thing. This is cool. And so the unit card is good, and they have really high stats, but they're basically just a Kisho Ninja with better stats. That's all they are. There's really no difference. Different model and change stats, that's all they've done. That's all they've done. Stealth, blinding grenades. Stealth, blinding grenades. So it's just Kisho ninjas with better stats and less men that cost way more. The charge bonus when they're using stealth goes up really high. Nah, I just don't like it. I don't like it. They can beat katana heroes. I think they can beat Tetsuba heroes as well if they use the blinding grenades. Yeah. So it's like a Kisho ninja hero that has the advantages over other heroes that Kisho ninja usually have over samurai. A Kisho ninja unit can kill a katana samurai if it's used very tactically and decisively. And likewise, I think Hanzo Shadows can kill katana heroes if it's used very tactically and decisively. But it's so expensive, holy shit, too expensive. 1,800. It shouldn't cost so much. Take away some of the melee stats. Take away armor and melee stats and make them cost less. And then it will reward micromanagement and it won't rely as much on fucking ridiculous melee stats. And then fire rockets. Alright, fire rockets are interesting. This is a unit that eviscerates cavalry, can cause morale debuffs anywhere on the battlefield, and has a really high range, and it only has 5 rockets. So this unit brings 200 rockets to the field that it fires over time, and it has no melee stats to speak of whatsoever. Look at that, 2 and 1. But it has a tactical use that is high risk, high reward. And if I could bring this unit earlier in the campaign, I always would, and I would snipe generals with it, I would fire into blobs, I would have fun compacting enemy units into tight spaces and then bombing them with these. It just arrives so late in the campaign. But yeah, like this is a unit that has its own role, is satisfying to use, and can be utilised well. It's got 150 upkeep, but it can wipe out 5 cavalry units. So it could potentially wipe out 5 Yari cavalries, or 3 katana cavalries and 2 generals. All it takes is one good salvo, and it wipes out a cavalry unit, or 200 kills per salvo into packed infantry. So this is an underappreciated unit as well. Kisho Ninja and Fire Rockets are underappreciated. Fire Bombers are obsolesced by Kisho Ninja, and Fire Projecting Mangonels are largely obsolesced by European cannons, because European cannons have precision capability. Just like the Fire Rockets can snipe generals at a range of 250, European cannons can snipe generals at a range of 500. They're just not as good at it. But yeah, 10 ammo, so that's 40 cannonballs. No wait. So they have 16... No wait. Yeah, 40 cannonballs. So this can potentially wipe out 2 or 3 cavalry units, I think. If it gets good shots. It just won't happen and it slows the unit down too much, yeah. I think you would always rather bring fire rockets pretty much, even against fortifications. They outrange bow warrior monks even. These are good to use against even bow monks. And are good against heroes as well, I think. So, monks, cavalry, generals, the fire rockets are good. And they're distinct from everything else, every other unit. They do the job of bows better than bows, possibly. But yeah, that's the base roster of Shogun 2. And then what happens is, the Shimizu get slightly more reliable katana samurai, Chosakabe gets slightly... And also, they get a more reliable katana hero, 28-12 instead of 25-10. Hang on. Yeah, so 25-10, and the charge bonus is 28 instead of 30. Morale is the same though, I think. Morale is 40, yep. Yeah, so Shimizu gets slightly more reliable katana samurai and katana hero, but not katana cavalry. Chosakabe gets slightly more reliable bows. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 superior units. And also a unique bow unit. And Shimizu also get a unique gun unit, which is interesting. It's distinguished well. Fires a unique projectile, and it has enfilading capabilities. Small unit as well when it can attack fortifications. So this is a very unique unit. They're all distinguished quite well. Mori get Wako Raiders, which are like a ninja katana samurai, low armor, higher melee defense, so they're more deft with their blades in a melee. Weaker charge for some reason, that's strange. But it's a unique unit that's used differently from katana samurai. And then Oda have unique Ashigaru and a pay to win. No wait, pay to win, yep they are. Oda, Longyar, Ashigaru come with the DLC for all the units, and they are pay to win. Not well balanced, not well thought out, overpowered unit that you would ideally just always take over the base unit. Costs a bit more, but it's worth it. It's always fucking worth it. They even have more armor, for fuck's sake. For fuck's sake. Just way better. Look at that bonus versus cavalry. It's even higher than Yaru Samurai, man. Come on. It's just way better. It's like a phalanx. A fucking... It's like a Macedonian phalanx, this unit, in Japan. Then Ikuike have a derived roster that... So the Ashigaru are made weaker, but they have slightly higher morale and more men. So they have a strange weakness. And then, instead of having samurai, they have ronin, which have less men, higher morale, higher melee stats. Same here. Less men, higher melee attack and defense and morale. And then they have their own Matchlock Warrior Monks, a unique unit. Matchlock Warrior Monks. So they have increased range, which makes them similar to the Matchlock Hero unit that the other factions get. So this is like Matchlock Samurai, except even better stats for drilling units at longer range and less armor. So it's a really glass cannon unit, really high risk reward. Naginata Warrior Monk Cavalry, which is really slow, but other than that it has all the Warrior Monk properties that you would expect, even the crap charge. Very high morale, terrible armor, a very interesting unit to use. It feels like a tank, except for the fact that its charge and armor are terrible. Very interesting unit. And yeah, that's... And then Otomo, they have higher stats for their matchlocks, but not for the Matchlock Hero, which is really strange. Another clue about how rushed this was, these pay-to-win units. So the Matchlock Hero is a pay-to-win unit, and it doesn't even have an Otomo variant that makes it better than the standard Matchlock Hero. Like the Shimazu Katana Hero is superior to all other Katana Heroes. It's inconsistent and it doesn't make sense. They couldn't be bothered. They half-assed it. They fucking half-assed it. Shogun 2's launch, really good. DLC units, fucking rushed cash grabs. And then you've got Tersos, which are frankly overpowered, just like Dondorbus Cavalry. My god, they're overpowered. So this is Matchlock Samurai with Naginata Samurai armor with Katana Samurai melee stats and morale. It's just, the only thing it's not got in its favour is number of men, 120, but its armour preserves it. Its ability to rely on guns and outrange preserves it. It's an overpowered unit. 850, holy fuck. 850 when Katana Samurai costs 100 less. My god, not fucking balanced. And then Dondorbus Cavalry. Holy shit, man. It deletes units. Another pay-to-win unit. Fucking just deletes units. You pay $7 for the DLC or $10, whatever it is, and you get shotguns on horses. What the fuck? They even have good armor. They even have 15 charge bonus. And look at this shit again, bonus versus cavalry. Why does it say this line? Get off my interface. Fuck off. And they have 12 melee attack, which means they have melee attack that is way higher than Yari Cavalry. Guys with shotguns have higher melee attack than guys with giant spears. Fucking pay to win. They have higher morale too, holy fuck. Just give some Portuguese guys shotguns, put them on horses, and let them run around Japan deleting units, and they can shoot through themselves. Holy shit. The guys at the back of the block can shoot through the ones at the front, like on Warhammer. That's how rushed this is. It's like Warhammer levels of half-assed and not thought out. My god. And yeah, did I mention they use shotguns that can fucking one shot can kill like 5 guys? Did I mention that? The only thing is they have a range of 50, which doesn't matter because they're on horses and a range of 50 a lot of the time is the same as having a range of fucking 500 because nothing can catch them unless they let them. Guys running on foot with melee weapons never get into a fight with Donderbus Cavalry unless Donderbus Cavalry let them. Pay to win unit, the most pay to win fucking unit I've ever seen, holy shit. I hate this DLC pay to win cancer. Fucking ruins my games. And then, if Donderbus Cavalry aren't bad enough, Tokugawa Mounted Gunners. Oh my god, man. So, alright, let's take those shotguns on horses and give them matchlocks so they can shoot from as far away as matchlocks on foot. They're like goddamn conquistadors now. Fucking dragoons. Look at that, actual mounted gunners. Accuracy of 45, even though they have carbines, it looks like. Yeah, 80 men with 15 ammo for 1,200 bullets at 45 accuracy. So you can just snipe cavalry units all you want, all day long, and run away behind your own cavalry units as a shield, and then rejoin the cavalry fight from the side with peppering shots into the flank. Combined arms with dragoons. Fucking DLC pay to win bullshit. And Hattori, of course, which I think was a pre-order bonus. I fucking hate that shit. And they have more expensive units, I think. But they all can deploy anywhere. They all have Kisho training. So it doesn't say here, it should, but it doesn't. All of these units have Kisho training, and then bandits can hide almost anywhere, can walk whilst hidden, can shoot whilst hidden. So these are Boashigaru that resemble Kisho Ninja. And look at that, bonus versus cavalry, what the fuck? The line is there, it shouldn't be, it's there, it shouldn't be. Oh wait a minute. Never mind. It's always there. False alarm. Alright. And that's it. So, that is the Shogun 2 unit roster, how it's done. You duplicate a standard roster across all of your factions. You have all of the units be well defined. And then as you go between the factions, you have tweaks according to themes that's done quite well. That means that the rich distinguishing of all of the units always exists, but then there's an added layer on top of it where, for example, Shimizu Katana Samurai can be relied on in even more situations, so you can have a heavier reliance on them. So instead of having 4 Katana Samurai and 4 Nodashi Samurai, you would have 5 Shimizu Katana Samurai and 3 Nodashi Samurai. So you rely harder on them and you get rewarded within reason. And this meta, this theming that exists, is disturbed only really by when it's not been properly thought out. For example, with DLC units, or when Yaru Samurai doesn't have Spear Square, which I think it should, or where firebomb throwers are not powerful enough. So, on the whole, all of these units have their own personalities, and they all complement one another and have roles on the battlefield, and you can have interesting, strong, combined arms unfold between all the units. So, Katana Samurai and Shimizu, just Katana Samurai and Nodashi Samurai, the difference between them means that it's meaningful and important to have Nodashi Samurai flank and hit the rear while the base Katana Samurai pin from the front. You would always want to flank with the Nodashi and pin with the Katanas. and it's the same everywhere else. You would always want to pin with Naginata Samurai, while you protect their flanks with Yari Samurai from cavalry. So these are better at moving and controlling the battlefield. And then Naginata Warrior Monks, you would always rather have these stay in trees for as long as possible, while Naginata Samurai, you would be fine with standing in the open, moving under arrow fire. So there exists in this game strong concepts for all of these units. Quite often, most units, all of the important units in this game, are unique and distinguished, and that's something that just doesn't exist with modern Total War games, where there isn't this kind of classifying and distinguishing. Like, there's no vision of how the battles will happen, and I think that's one of the main failings of modern Total War games. There isn't meaningful distinction, there isn't actual unit variety, there's a false narrative, and it's caused by quantity that isn't thought out. And I might go into this in more detail with Rome Total War at some point, and then further elaborate the other side of it with examining Troy and 3K. Alright, that's it.